Good morning, ma'am, and everyone. Today, I and my group are going to present on the topic overview of negotiation, where we will discuss about negotiation, international negotiation, cross-cultural negotiation, and some types of negotiation ahead. Students who are presenting today along with me are Divya, Sarya, and Rajnandini.
The art of negotiation comes into play daily in the life of employees at all levels and in every position. Negotiating is a fine art, and the best negotiators are those that seek win win solutions. In this, we will explore how current approaches to negotiation strategy and tactics are used, what negotiation entails, types of negotiation relationships that exist from hard bargain to win win to fully partnered relationships and personal ones. Negotiation is a method by which people settle differences. It is a process by which compromise or agreement is reached while avoiding argument and dispute. In any disagreement, individuals understandably aim to achieve the best possible outcome for their position. However, the principles of fairness, seeking mutual benefit, and maintaining a relationship are the keys to a successful outcome.
Meaning, a negotiation is a strategic discussion that resolves an issue in a way that both parties find acceptable. By negotiating, all involved parties try to avoid arguing but agree to reach some form of compromise. Negotiations involve some give and take, which means one party will always come and take out on the top of negotiation. To reach an agreement, each side receives value. For example, a client believes company XYZ should reduce the cost of its service to $800, and the company believes should maintain the cost of $1,000. Both sides may negotiate 900 service. In this case, both win $100. Negotiations can take place between buyers and sellers, an employer and prospective employee, or government of two or more countries. Importance helps in conflict resolution. Negotiation is a common way for people to resolve problems and deal with conflict. It happens when people wish to talk to each other to find a solution to the problem. It can also be a formal method of a conflict resolution used to resolve interpersonal, intergroup, and interstate conflicts. Second, strengthen and maintain better relationship. A relationship in a negotiation is a perceived connection that can be psychological, economic, political, or personal. Whatever its basis, right leaders like skilled negotiators work to foster a strong connection because effective leadership truly depends on it. Third one, provides a competitive advantage. There are many factors good negotiators try to control to give them a competitive advantage in negotiations. Factors such as timing and the location of the meeting, as well as the use of body language and even what party had to eat, can contribute to more successful negotiation, in that they are classified as many things like: first, time management. The time frame of a negotiations can change a parties negotiating strength. As a buyer of a goods and service, it is valuable to know the most sales organizations and salespersons have monthly sales quota. For example, a car dealer has to sell so many cars in a month. If the sales quota has not been met yet at the end of the month, the dealership is much more likely to accept deals they would never have considered during the month. Second, location matters. Another tactic in negotiation is to have any face-to-face meetings either at your place or at least a neutral place. If at all possible, you do not want have to have any negotiations in the other party's conference room, as they will have the home field advantage. Third, body language. Good negotiators recognize the value of body language and use it intentionally. When the other party says something you do not feel to acceptable, fold your arm, accept your chest, or roll your eyes to send the subtle message that you do not like to their position. Fourth one, find solution to the problem. It is better negotiate by offering to more talk about the real issues and come up with the solution that everyone can agree to live with it. Both parties can have 100% of what they want because the solution can end up with both and instead of either or outcomes. Fifth one, eliminates negativity. Negotiators who would understand the importance of collaborating with one another to create value nonetheless often abandon that approach during the dispute resolutions. Consequently, they tend to look at the dispute resolution to process as a win to battle to their determinant. Process: preparing and planning. Before the start of negotiations, one must be aware of the conflict, the history leading to the negotiation of the people involved, their perception of the conflict, expectations from the negotiations, etc. This stage involves ensuring all the pertinent facts of the situations are known in order to clarify own position. It also needs to prepare an assessment of what the other party's negotiations goals are, what they are likely asked for. Second, definition of ground rule. Once the planning and strategy are developed, one has to begin the defining the ground rules and the procedures where the other party over the negotiation itself that will do the negotiation. For example, where it will take place, what time constraints, if any, will apply. To issue, what negotiations will be limited. Will there be a specific procedure to follow and in pace in this reached? During this phase, the parties will also exchange their initial proposals or demand. Third, clarification and justification. When initial positions have been exchanged, both the parties will explain, amplify, clarify, bolster, and justify their original demands. This not only be confrontational. This is the point where one party might want to provide the other party with any documentation that helps it supports to position. Fourth, bargaining and problem solving. The essence of the negotiation is the process that actual give and take in trying to hash out an agreement, a proper bargain. It is here where concessions will undoubtedly need to be made by both the parties. Fifth, closure and implementation. The final step is in the negotiation process is a formalization of the agreement that has been worked out and developing the procedures that are necessary for implementation and monitoring. For major negotiations, it will hammering out the specifics in a formal contract. Factors, elements affecting negotiation. First one, positive attitude. If you think people can improve their negotiation skills, you are likely to outperform those who believe negotiation process is innate according to their research. Research who finds whose approach negotiation with a positive attitude and high expectation tend to perform well. Second, credibility. It is the power to inspire belief, and when you are credible, people tend to listen to you. This is critical in negotiation. So, we see that credibility, the belief of the other side, is an essential step for the other side to listen the step in your message. Third, information. In a negotiation, it only makes sense to provide information that creates a competitive advantage for you. Doing so requires an intimate understanding of what competitive advantage means for you and the sorts of information that can lead you to these stronger positions. Fourth, time and place. Parties in negotiation who have high time face high costs in the negotiation process. When one party has time pressure, it becomes hyper vigilant and often will have less rational decision making. Time pressure affects both process and outcomes of negotiation. Emotional and control. The ability to recognize the emotion of others can understand the whether the negotiation partner is satisfied with the options offered and whether the interests of other sides are met. Another component of EI, that is regulating one's emotion, also facilitates the negotiation process. Sixth, communication. An effective communication is directly proportional to an effective negotiation. The better communication is, the better negotiation would be. Discussion does not mean fighting and shouting. Instead, it is simply the exchange of one's idea, thoughts, and opinions with each other.
Okay, so now we'll discuss the barriers to the negotiation process. First is negative outlook. Your attitude during the negotiation, hostile or cooperative, decides the tone for the negotiation. Negotiation need not be confrontational. In fact, effective negotiation is characterized by the parties working together to find a solution rather than each party trying to defeat the other party. Second is attitude of winning. Negotiations should be about finding solutions and adding value for all parties, not about winning or losing. As soon as we view the customers as the opponent, we compromise our ability to identify mutually beneficial outcomes. Third is emotional control. Strong emotions make us blind towards the reason during negotiation. Though it is normal to become emotional during negotiation, but as we get more emotional, we are less able to channel our negotiating behavior in constructive ways. Therefore, it is important to maintain control. Fourth is price. Sales professionals identify price as the number one objection in the sales process and the most significant barrier in negotiations. Don't give price more weight than it deserves. Fifth is lack of empathy. Since we are trying to find a solution that is acceptable to both parties, we need to understand that the other person's needs and wants with respect to the issue of negotiation. If we do not know what the person needs or wants, we will be unable to negotiate properly. Often, then, we take the time to find out about the other person, we discover that there is no significant disagreement. Sixth is wrong focus. The negotiators have a tendency to focus on the individuals rather than the issue involved. This is particularly true with people we dislike. There is a tendency to get off track by focusing on how difficult the person is. Once this happens, effective negotiation is impossible. It is important to stick to the real issues and put aside our personal feelings about the individual. The last is blame game. Playing the blame game makes the negotiation situation difficult. In any conflict or negotiation, each party contributes for better or worse. If you blame the other person for the difficulty, it will result in defiance. If you take responsibility for the problem, you will create a spirit of cooperation. Now we will move on to the role of communication, emotions, and personality. So, starting with communication, the exchange of information or passing of information, ideas, or thought from one person to the other or from one end to other is called communication. According to McFarland, communication is a process of meaningful interaction among human beings. More specifically, it is the process by which meanings are perceived and understandings are reached among human beings. Newman and Summer define communication as an exchange of facts, ideas, opinions, or emotions by two or more persons. Purpose of communication: management is getting the things done through others. The people working in the organization should therefore be informed how to do the work assigned to them in the best possible manner. The communication is essential in any organization. The purpose or role of communication in organizations are as follows. First, coordination. It is through communication the efforts of all the staff working in the organization can be coordinated for the accomplishment of the organization goals. The coordination of all personnels and their efforts is the essence of management, which can be attained through effective communication. Second is learning management skills. The communication facilitates flow of information, ideas, beliefs, perception, advice, opinion, orders, and instruction, etc. Both ways which enable the managers and the other supervisory staff to learn managerial skills through experience of others. The experience of the sender of the message gets reflected in it, which the person at the receiving end can learn by analyzing and understanding it. Next is developing good human relations. Managers and workers and other staff exchange their ideas, thoughts, and perceptions with each other through communication. This helps them to understand each other better. They realize the difficulties faced by their colleagues at the workplace. This leads to the promotion of good human relations in the organization. The importance of communication. Effective communication is vital for efficient management and to improve industrial relations. In modern world, the growth of telecommunication, information technology, and the growing competition and the complexity in production have increased importance of communication in organizations, large and small, irrespective of their type and kind. A corporate executive must be in a position to communicate effectively with his supervisors, colleagues, and in other departments and subordinates. This will make him perform well and enable him to give his 100% to the organization. Moving on to personality. A characteristic way of thinking, feeling, and behaving. Personality embraces moods, attitudes, and opinions and is most clearly expressed in interactions with other people. It includes behavioral characteristics, both inherent and acquired, that distinguish one person from another and that can be observed in people's relations to the environment and to the social group. Fred Luthans defined the term personality as how people affect others and how they understand and view themselves, as well as their pattern of inner and outer measurable traits and the person situation intervention. Personality plays a key role in organizational behavior because of the way that people think, feel, and behave affects many aspects of the workplace. People's personalities influence their behavior in groups, their attitudes, and the way they make decisions. In the workplace, personality affects such things as motivation, leadership, performance, and conflict. The more that management understands how personality in organizational behavior works, the better equipped they are to be effective and accomplish their goals. Decision making and independence are greatly affected by personality. Traits such as openness, emotional stability, and agreeableness all predict that individual will have less conflict, work better in teams, and have positive attitudes about his or her work. People with this type of personality should be placed in situations where they would be working with or leading others. Those who do not have these traits will have less motivation and be more negative when they are placed in this same situation. So, moving on to emotions. Any relatively brief conscious experience characterized by intense mental activity and a high degree of pleasure or displeasure. Emotion is often intertwined with mood, temperament, personality, disposition, and motivation. In some theories, cognition is an important aspect of emotion. Those acting primarily on the emotions, their feeling may seem as if they are not thinking, but mental processes are still essential, particularly in the interpretation of events. Joseph Leduc has defined emotions as the result of a cognitive and conscious process which occurs in response to a body system response to the trigger. The lexical definition of emotion is a strong feeling deriving from one's circumstances, mood, or relationships with others. Emotions are responses to significant internal and external events. The three components of emotion. In order to truly understand emotions, it is important to understand the three critical components of an emotion. Each element can play a role in the function and the purpose of your emotional responses. Subjective component is how you experience the emotion. Physiological component is how your body reacts to the emotion, and expressive component is how you behave in the response to the emotion. Emotions in the workplace play a large role in how an entire organization communicates within itself and to the outside world. Events at work have real emotional impact on participants. The consequences of emotional states in the workplace, both behaviors and attitudes, have substantial significance for individuals, groups, and society. Positive emotions in the workplace help employees obtain favorable outcomes, including achievement, job enrichment, and higher quality social context. Negative emotions such as fear, anger, stress, hostility, sad, guilt increase the predictability of workplace deviance and how the outside world views the organization.
Distributive and integrative negotiation. Each type of negotiation falls into one of two categories. First is distributive negotiation. Distributive negotiation, sometimes called zero sum negotiation or win lose negotiation, is a bargaining approach in which one person succeeds only if another person loses. A distributive negotiation usually involves discussion of single issue. For example, a sale business wants to enter a contract with a vendor for IT service. The business wants the most IT service for the lowest price possible, while the IT vendor wants to provide the lowest number of resources for the highest price. Each party's desire to get a better deal represents a distributive negotiation approach. Tips for success in a distributive negotiation approach. First is be persistent. When you are taking a distributive approach to a negotiation, persistence and polite assertiveness can help you fulfill your interest. Second, make the first offer. In a distributive negotiation, you can make the first offer to begin the bargaining in your favor. Third is don't communicate your minimum favorable outcome. It's important to aim high in distributive negotiation to ensure successful bargaining. You can withhold any information on the minimum you are willing to accept from bargaining for the best results. Integrative negotiation. Integrative negotiation, sometimes called win-win negotiation or collaborative negotiation, is a bargaining approach where negotiation parties attempt to reach a mutually beneficial solution. Unlike distributive negotiation, integrative negotiation can involve multiple issues. For example, an established fashion company and a cosmetic startup company agree to collaborate on a product geared toward their shared target market. They negotiate a contract that allows the cosmetic startup to gain greater exposure and the fashion company to reach its financial and marketing goals. Tips for an integrative negotiation. First is take a principled approach. You can discuss your principles during an integrative negotiation to build trust with other party. Second is discuss your needs and interests openly. Communicating about your goals and integrative negotiation can promote transparency and enable a positive relationship. Third is use bargaining to solve problems. In an integrative negotiation, both parties can use negotiation as an opportunity for collaborative problem solving. Cross cultural negotiation. Cross cultural negotiation is the interactions typically in business that occur between various cultures. This implies that culture not only has to be shared by the individual belongings to a certain group, but also that it has to be preserved in time and transmitted from one generation to another. Cross cultural negotiation empowers you to craft better agreements with customers, suppliers, and co workers. It also fosters better teamwork within your organization, especially when collaborating with colleagues from cultures you might be unfamiliar with. Factors affecting cross cultural negotiation. People from feminine cultures will care more about relationship and may also tend to be more collectivist in their thinking. Negotiators from more masculine countries are probably more likely to use a distributive bargaining, a more competitive approach to negotiation. First is protocol issues. There may even be protocols that we'll never be aware of. For example, in Saudi Arabia, showing the soul of your show to your host would be considered a breach of etiquette, but they would rarely point it out to you. In Belgium, failing to properly introduce everyone might ruffle feathers. Lack of understanding of etiquette can lead to tension, discomfort, and mistrust. Second is language issues. In certain circumstances, language difference will require interpretive service on one or all side. It is worth exploring the degree of language issues. Early on to prepare accordingly before substantive discussion begin. In using translation, you will want to ensure that you are getting accurate and timely translation. So set clear ground rules for your interpreters. Third is timing issues. Different cultures deal with time in very different ways. In Western cultures, punctuality is generally seen as positive, though in the extreme, it can actually be seen as nitpicky behavior. In Japan, China, a failure to appear on time may be a serious breach of etiquette. Fourth is legal issues. When foreign law is an issue, advice from counsel is the appropriate jurisdiction is a must. The parties will need to determine what law is to apply any contract, both procedurally and substantively. Be aware that legislation in one or more countries may trump what is written in the contract if there is conflict. As a result, it is imperative to have someone who knows the legal framework in the relevant jurisdictions. Fifth is trust and information issues. North American culture generally values a rational, analytical, straightforward approach to information, but at the same time, many North Americans typically keep their card close to their chest and are reluctant to disclose. The adage of "I'll show you mine if you show me your first" would not be an uncommon. Overcoming cross cultural barriers. The following ways of overcoming intellectual barriers will help most of the cross cultural business negotiation. First is research the other party's culture. Standard negotiation text advise us to research the culture of our host or counterpart, including becoming aware of the culture's customs, rituals, taboos, and so on. To business negotiation, create one another with handshake or hug or bow. Such guidelines can help you avoid making potentially embarrassing or offensive fox paths and reduce cultural barriers, and they may also improve the efficiency of your business negotiation. Second is consider the individual. If rule number one in an international negotiation is to know the other side's culture, rule number two is to avoid over reliance on that knowledge. Everyone involved in your business negotiation will want to be viewed as multi-faced individual. Yet negotiation often give too much weight to other parties' culture. Third is build bridges across cultures. Rather than focusing on overcoming intellectual barriers, look for ways to bridge the two cultures represented in your business negotiations. That bridge building might mean pointing out cultural similarities such as shared ancestry or familiar custom, or it should involve finding commonalities that go beyond culture such as shared experience, interest, or goals. Fourth is consider the broader context. When co-teaching across corporate diplomacy to executives. When analyzing a negotiation in foreign country, the diplomats raise issues related to changing sorry When analyzing a negotiation in foreign country, the diplomats raise issues related to changing politics and laws in the region, the interest of community groups and business norms looking far beyond obvious cultural barriers and difference that might be present in the room. Fifth, take steps to reduce stress. Emotional stress, accountability to others, and deadlines can cause us to fall back on stereotypical thinking rather than carefully analyzing the negotiations. So, do what you can to reduce stress in your cross cultural business negotiation. In this research on cross cultural negotiation, in one experiment, American participants who were under time pressure were more likely to blame the individual rather than situation for a problem.
Coming to types of negotiations in corporates or workplace. Negotiation takes place in various ways in corporates for increased output and better relations among employees. Some of the various types of negotiation are: the first one is day-to-day negotiation at workplace. Every day we negotiate something at the other at the workplace, either with our superiors or with our fellow workers for the smooth flow of work. These are called day to day negotiations. In the workplace, we may have to display our negotiating skills in various situations, such as negotiating a salary hike with the HR manager after promotion, or negotiating a project deadline with our team lead, our manager, or negotiating few days off for a family holiday with our manager. The next one is negotiation between employee and superior. At the workplace, an employee has to negotiate with his superiors so that he is assigned the responsibilities as per his needs, interests, and specialization. Throughout our career, we will need to occasionally negotiate with your employer or supervisor. Even if you're happy with your job, at some point you will realize that we deserve a raise, I need a work process change, I want to take extra vacation time or sick leave. These negotiations include negotiating a leave of absence at the timing of a vacation, or negotiating a more flexible work schedule, or negotiating the terms of separation with an employer, or negotiating a salary offer after being selected for a new job, or negotiating a contract for consulting or freelance services. The next one is negotiation between colleagues. Whether your job requires teamwork or you're in a managerial position, you must be able to communicate with your peers, subordinates, supervisors, and colleagues. Negotiation is essential among team members to reduce the chances of disputes and conflicts. Any particular team member should not be overburdened while the other member is relaxing. One should negotiate with his fellow workers and accept only those responsibilities he feels he is best capable of doing. The responsibility of achieving the target should not rest only on one shoulder but equally divided among all. Some of these instances include negotiating roles and workload within a project team, negotiating a project deadline with your boss, troubleshooting interpersonal conflicts, etc. The next one is commercial negotiations. Commercial negotiations are generally done in the form of a contract. A contract is signed by both the parties and they both have to adhere to its terms and conditions. Two parties sit face to face across the table, discuss issues between them, and come to conditions acceptable to both the parties. In such cases, everything should be in black and white. Commercial negotiations generally involves an external party, and thus a contract is essential so that no party backs out later. Depending on our job, we may be called upon to negotiate constructively with people outside of our company or firm. If you're a salesperson, this may involve negotiating favorable B2B or B2C contracts with clients. If you have purchasing responsibilities, you will need to source and negotiate with vendors for cost saving supply contracts. Example: negotiating with the customer over the price and terms of a sale, or negotiating service or supply agreements with vendors. The last type of negotiation is legal negotiation. Legal negotiation takes place between individual and the law, where the individual has to abide by the rules and regulations laid by the legal system, and the legal system also takes into account the needs and interests of the individual. International negotiations. As the name suggests, it is about negotiation between countries. International negotiation occurs all the time between governments. It also happens between individuals and companies, where the traps and tricks of cross border negotiation can enhance even the most experienced home country negotiators. International negotiation is often not just between individual people but between large delegations, each of which is well organized and where every person has specialized and skilled work. An international negotiator analyzes international conflicts and negotiations in order to develop accurate policy recommendations, negotiation strategies, and tactical responses. He examines and engages with some of the critical economic, legal, ethical, and political dilemmas that face nation states and decision makers in the aftermath of war. Coming to factors affecting international negotiations. International business negotiations have several factors that make them more complicated than those conducted among companies in the same country. A big trap in negotiation lies in misunderstanding the culture of other countries, especially in the rules they use to negotiate. International negotiation, done well, takes very careful notice of local cultures and customs and is often conducted with remarkable diplomacy and tact. An understanding of the factors that affect negotiations across borders and oceans and cultures can help businesses achieve success on a global scale. Some of the factors affecting international negotiations are attitudes about risk. Nearly every business negotiations entails some level of risk. It is inevitable. Some cultures encourage risk taking and adventurous behavior in business, while others favor a more risk averse approach. Negotiators should understand the cultural attitudes about risk before proposing any agreements that may include high risk levels. For instance, cultures that encourage freedom of thought also often encourage risk and exploration, while those cultures that favor traditional ideas may be less willing to depart from those ideas and explore risky situations. The next one is government business relations. Relationships between governments and the businesses within their jurisdictions can also affect negotiations with overseas partners. Businesses in countries where the government encourages corporate growth and development operate differently than firms in countries with tight regulations. For instance, the government of Thailand has encouraged entrepreneurs and welcomed international partnership. In countries with stricter regulations, government bureaucracies can make international negotiations more difficult than American companies are accustomed to encountering. The next one is communication style. A major hurdle in international negotiations can arise when cultures clash over their communication styles. Even when both parties speak the same language, they may consider that the same words have different meanings. A culture that values expediency, efficiency, and fast results may view the word soon as meaning immediately. The same word soon might mean days, weeks, or even months to cultures that place more emphasis on taking their time and evaluating every aspect of the agreement. The last one is corporate structure. Cultural aspects also affect how companies structure their decision making processes. Some cultures favor an authoritarian, top down approach, while others seek out consensus and group unity. For example, American companies tend to have a lead negotiator who speaks for the entire group. Many Asian cultures, including the Japanese and Chinese, favor consensus and teamwork when reaching a decision. These differences can lead to unmet expectations and frustration from both parties. So, identifying the structure of the negotiating team is a vital part of a successful international negotiation. Conclusion. I would like to conclude that negotiation is a technique of discussing issues among oneself and reaching to a conclusion benefiting all involved in the discussion by avoiding conflicts. It is referred to as the style of discussing things among individuals in an effort to come to a conclusion satisfying all the parties involved. Negotiating will help librarian work more effectively and can also help librarian get a pay rise, time off, a new job, more help or more recognition. It is a skill everyone can apply in almost every aspect of our life, right down to our personal relationships. And this brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you.